Hello, welcome to the Lalantia show. Today I'm talking about communication with other beings. And what I mean by other beings is I mean basically non-human beings. So I guess it doesn't have to be non-human, but non-physical beings. Some of them can be human and just on the other paths and on the other side. They can be guides who are human. But I also want to kind of specifically be talking about different beings, fairies, dragons, mare beings, unicorns, and ascended masters, galactic beings, beings that are different from us. So yeah, I think this is going to be interesting. And I know I've been recording a bunch of videos in one go. So if you've been binge watching my videos, you may be like, hey, she's wearing the same clothes. So I've just been recording a few videos this afternoon / evening. It's becoming evening now. So yeah, I didn't bother changing my clothes. It's just going to be what it is. But this one came through my guides said to talk about this because it has a lot of important stuff within this topic. So this should be a lot of fun. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Lalantia. I'm a psychic realm channeler and energy healer. And I work with so many amazing beings. I work with dragons, unicorns, mermaids, fairies. I work with galactic beings, ascended masters. I work with Merlin. There's a Merlin video that's going to be going up or is out by the time this one goes up probably. Yeah, I work with all kinds of different beings and they all work in different ways. They all work with energy in different ways. And what it comes down to, my purpose in this connection, well, one of my purposes, because there are actually a few of them, is to help you in connecting to yourself. So you may have been one of these beings in a past life. You may have been a mirror being in a past life. You may have been a unicorn or a dragon, although those are far more rare than a mirror being or even a fairy. You may have been a fairy or a fae being of some kind, an elf, some are more common than others. My experience is that most people have been a mirror being in a past life. And less people have been fairies or nature spirits, whatever words you want to put on it, but there are quite a few. And then I have ran into very few people who have been unicorns in past lives, very few. And a few that have been dragons in past lives, which is also very few, at least to our awareness. So who knows? Maybe we're going to be waking up to that memory a lot more, but usually it's just been we've worked with them in our past lives. And so in connecting with them, they're going to help us in remembering who we really are. Plus, they all have their own special energy that they work in, and help us with specific things within ourselves when we're going through our own healing process. So what I wanted to share in this video is that communication with them and how it looks different for everybody. So we have an ability to read energy in multiple ways. We can read energy through knowing, through feeling, through hearing, through seeing. We can receive it through smell, touch, kind of like that's a little bit trickier in this situation, so I'm not going to go into that too much, but we can receive information in multiple ways. Sometimes we see energy mostly as colors. So it may be that when you're connecting, you just see multiple colors. Well, you can tune in and see what those colors mean and the relevance of them. Now, I communicate with non-physical beings in all of these different ways. So when I'm communicating with them, I can have a combination of knowing, seeing, feeling, and hearing all at the same time. And taste doesn't really work for this, but I do receive through taste or smell sometimes as well. I can kind of get a little bit of a taste right now, which is really interesting. Somebody showing up in that way, but it's a little bit hard to communicate through taste or smell. But we can communicate with them in this way. They can show us things through seeing. So sometimes your seeing is the strongest, but it's hard to communicate through seeing because you only see, you don't know what they're trying to tell you. So they can show you things. There are actually a lot of very successful psychics that rely only on seeing. And so when they're relying on seeing and they're communicating through seeing only, then they have symbols that are significant. And so when you're working in this way, you're gonna make like a book of symbols. It doesn't have to be a book, but you need to have an idea of what it means. Now, if you work with through seeing and you know the tarot, they can show you through the tarot, not the physical cards, but showing you the different cards. So I've had this come through as well. Um, or other things that are familiar to you. So let's say an apple is something that is significant to you. So they can communicate to you by showing you an apple. Maybe apple means teacher or nutrition or I don't know, whatever apple means to you. Maybe apple means Avalon. In Avalon, we had apple trees. So it can mean different things to different people. So for you specifically, you need to have an idea of what these symbols mean to you, kind of make a list of symbols or a book of symbols. So if you're relying on only seeing, then they can communicate with you quickly and you can receive the information accurately without being like, okay, well, show me this and show me this and show me this. Now, I don't have that, but I've been doing this long enough that there are some things that are pretty clear to me. There's the obvious ones like street signs and stuff like that, but most beings communicate to me through other ways as well. So then I'm working with seeing and feeling, for example. Now I do hear as well, but some just don't communicate in that way. With it would be telepathically communicating, right? So they communicate having a conversation in your head with them. I do that most of the time when I'm communicating with other beings or I'm channeling. That's how I receive the information. But it is also working with the other ways of receiving information. Now, if you're working through feeling, you have to be able to have, you always need to be able to have a clear enough filter to be able to decipher what is your filter, what is your own beliefs, your own fears, your own um, preconceived notions of things. So, um, let's say, for example, if a fairy comes forward for you, if you're not dropping your filter or clearing your filter enough, then you may see the fairy how you think the fairies look instead of seeing the fairy how the fairy actually looks, which may look terrifying to you. And maybe you're not ready to see them how they really look, and maybe that's a part of it. But whatever it may be, if you have an idea of what fairies look like and you're pressing that upon them, that's how you're going to see them. Okay, that happens all of the time. It's very, very, very common. Most people who talk about working with fairies, maybe I shouldn't say most people, a lot of people who talk about working with fairies and stuff, they're not actually seeing them how they really look. And they're kind of pressing their own judgment, their own idea of what they look like on them. So it's really important to kind of drop that filter. Now, that said, don't get too caught up in it. Don't worry too much about it. If you're spending all your time worrying about doing everything right, then you're just going to block the energy. Okay. This is practice. This is something that you have to do for a period of time in order to begin to trust in what you're getting and to get really accurate information. But when you're working with feeling, you have to trust in what you're feeling. And if you're bringing in a lot of other feelings from your filter or from experiences that you had during the day, which is part of your filter really, then you're not going to see what, or you're not going to feel. I often say see, and I'm actually meaning something a little bit different, but you're not going to feel exactly accurately, or you're not going to be able to decipher what it is because it's mixed in with all of this other stuff. So if you feel into things, then you should be able to get an impression of something. So you can get an impression of sadness or an impression of happiness or I don't know, whatever it is, you can get an impression of it. You can get an idea of it. And that is a hook for you. Once you get something through, if feeling is the only ability that's coming through, then once you get a hook into that energy, then you can go in there. You can go into that energy at that point and you can be like, okay, so let me feel more to be able to receive more information, to be able to understand more of what's going on. So that's when you'll be able to have more feeling pressed upon you. Okay. So remember, it's like an impression. I feel very, very strongly, but I also see and hear and know. And sometimes the feeling and the knowing comes together. And so it's like puzzle pieces that kind of drop into place. So if you're feeling something and you're knowing something, then you're getting a bigger picture. Now, if you're feeling something, you're knowing something, and you're seeing something, then you're getting an even bigger picture. Now you add in hearing, and then you get even more information, and you can have a greater understanding. Now, oftentimes, as our abilities are opening up, one ability is going to be stronger than others, or it may jump around. It may be that one day your hearing is the strongest, and you're hearing different things, and you're putting it together, but you're maybe not seeing anything, but you're hearing things. And keep in mind that hearing does not come up from outside of you 99% of the time. Very few people are hearing from outside of them. They're hearing it within their own head. It can be either way, but most of the time it is not outside of you. So don't get caught up in not being able to hear. Like, you probably hear far more than you think you do, but you're not being able to decipher it from your own thoughts. Okay. It takes practice. So, like I was saying, you may jump around, that one ability is stronger than other abilities one day, and then it switches to something else. But it's important to not attach to how you are receiving the information. Okay, you just need to be able to allow yourself to receive whatever it is without judgment, not attaching to it. Oftentimes, this was a big problem for me in the beginning, that I was so desperate to receive information. I wanted it so badly. I wanted to be able to understand what was coming through. So I would cling really tightly trying to get that information. The key is being able to not attach to it and just let it be whatever it is. Whatever's meant to come through will come through. Now, I will say that sometimes, even still, sometimes my ego will be really loud. I'll have other things going on in my life, and I have a harder time detaching from what I want to receive or what I think I want to receive. And I have to remember, step back, it'll be whatever it will be. Now, I have the same rule for anything when you're going into energy, for going into past lives, going into meditation, going into on journeys, connecting with guides in any way. It's really, really important to not have an attachment to it. Okay. So I know it's easy for me to say that. Hopefully, you understand what I mean by that. So, communicating with other beings can come through in a multitude of ways. Now, when we talk about channeling, channeling is reading energy. Okay. So, that's deciphering, that's translating the energy, no matter however it's coming through. So, in order to channel, it doesn't mean you have to hear them. They don't have to speak telepathically to you or through you in order to channel. You can you can translate the energy through feeling, through knowing, through seeing, and it can become words that are like what we call channeling oftentimes. We often get a little bit caught up in what channeling actually is. Channeling is reading energy. So, I can be communicating with a guide who isn't necessarily telepathically speaking to me, but I can, with a combination of everything else, even if they're not speaking to me through words telepathically, I can still know what they are sharing or see, feel, whatever, a combination of them usually. And I can just, like, for this situation, I suggest just starting to write what you're feeling, write what if you're seeing things, write down anything, everything. Remember to detach. Now, there are some people who, doodle while they're tuning into the energy to just kind of distract their mind a little bit. That's a great idea. That's one way of distracting your mind. I channel a lot when I'm driving or when I'm doing an activity that doesn't require my full attention. Like, I naturally can do it without thinking too hard. I don't have to pay complete attention. um, because then it keeps my ego busy doing something else. I'm focusing on that task so that I'm able to allow the information to flow through, and I'm not attaching to it because it is whatever it is. And I'll record myself as I'm driving. Sometimes I'll just turn on the recorder on my phone and I'll just start talking. I'll start talking about um, what I see or what I feel. And then that takes me deeper, and I'll just keep talking about it. And that will become something bigger. And maybe I'll just begin to get a greater understanding. I no longer really pay attention to how I'm receiving the information. I'm just receiving the information and just share however it comes through. But I will say that it took me a long time to get to where I am now. I know that it took me at least 2 years to really begin to trust in what I was channeling. In the beginning, I didn't really like, I don't know that I actually shared that I was channeling the information that I was sharing because I was afraid that I was wrong and that I was making it up. And then I had a mentor who was able to tell me that I was channeling, and basically I gained my confidence through working with her and knowing that I wasn't just making stuff up. And ever since then, I have just, really strengthened my own abilities and learned to trust in them much more. So, um, I guess the biggest thing that I want you to know is that it's important to not attach to it, and that you do have the ability to read energy. So you may be thinking, well, I'm not getting any information. It takes consistency and practice. Consistency means you're doing it again and again and again and again. It means that you're showing up every day, or at least like 3 times a week, and tuning in to receive the information. You're setting the intention to connect. You're setting the intention to receive. And you're detaching enough to actually allow that information to come in. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. But you have to be consistent in it. To me, that is like the biggest thing. You've got to be consistent. I keep saying that's the biggest thing. Okay, there's a lot of important things. I do want to mention here, just in case this is your first time stumbling upon one of my videos, or this is your first time even, hearing a topic like this, it is important to not just channel any old being. It's important to not just be like, who's stepping forward? I'm going to channel you, because you're going to call in energies that are at a frequency that is easy for you to channel, which means that they're probably going to be low vibrational energies, and they can disguise themselves. So when we're channeling, it is important, and remember, channeling is reading energy. It is important to set intention and an integrity, that you will only channel those of the highest and best good, the deepest of love, and an integrity, highest of integrity. You can set an integrity level. So when I channel, I set the integrity level at 8 and above. Most of them that come forward are going to be 10. I kind of think of 10 as like the highest integrity, but there are some that come in and that are higher. Source comes in, obviously source is going to be higher than 10 when, there's another guide that's 10. Okay, so I do have guides that have come forward and said they're integrity of 12, for example. So you may not be able to read the energy of someone that is super high integrity because you aren't matching that vibration, that frequency. So you would have to raise your vibration to be able to receive that energy, or to read that energy, whatever way it may be, channel that energy. So that means that you need to focus on, I'm trying to like think of how to word this. You need to focus on raising your own vibration to be able to match the vibration of what you want to be able to connect with and channel. Now I say match the vibration, it's actually not totally accurate, because it has to be at least a little bit of a touch of vibration there. But if you're channeling someone who is, 12th dimension or something, then their vibration is going to be quite high and quite intense, but they can lower theirs to a degree for you to be able to connect with them. Okay, so they're going to bring themselves down to match you. You're going to bring yourself up to connect to them. So it's not necessarily a match in that it stays consistent, but it's enough that you're able to receive that information. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to you. This wasn't necessarily supposed to be like all about channeling, and ended up kind of being that way, but that's what it really is. When you think about it, when it comes to being able to communicate with other non-physical beings, it's going to be that you really are, you're reading their energy, so you're channeling. That's what it is. So yeah, I am always a little bit hesitant to tell people just go in and channel, because some people just aren't ready. You need to know how to protect your energy. You need to know how to raise your vibration to be able to meet them at their level. You need to know how to like set intentions and be able to tell if somebody is really for the highest good. All of that is really important, and it's easy to just get sucked into it and want to just start channeling. I will tell you this. When I first started channeling, I didn't know I was channeling, but I was using an oracle deck. It is Keepers of the Light by Kyle Gray. And I was pulling the cards and I was channeling the beings. They would just come forward. Like it was just like second nature or really natural for me. Um, but I didn't like they would start talking and I would just channel write. Like I would just write all the things that they said and I would share that, but I wouldn't. I think in the very beginning I was a little bit afraid to say that I was channeling them. And I would just share the messages and the messages would just be whatever they were and people would take them however they took them until I um began to realize that I was actually channeling and I knew that I was connecting with them. Like when I look back, I know that I knew that I was connecting with them because I would see them, I would hear them, I would feel them. I would often cry because the messages were so powerful and life-changing even for me. A lot of them were messages that I needed, but I was sharing them with others as well. So that is one way that you can begin to start. Keepers of the Light is a great starting place because they're keepers of the light. You know, like they're high vibrational beings. I would still be clear in setting intention when you're doing it that you're only letting those in of the highest and most good, the deepest of love, highest of integrity. But it makes it a bit easier rather than just going in and being like, okay, who's going to come in, you know, and then not knowing who it's going to be. With the cards, you have a hook, you have something to tap into. Okay, so you can do that with other cards as well, but that deck has specific beings that are um, here to help us. You know, they're here to help us at this time and as we create the new earth. So that's a great place to start. And I do have clients that have done the same thing as I did. I just kind of stumbled upon it in that way, but I recommended that to my other clients who were tapping into channeling and learning and gaining trust in themselves. And that was their starting point, and it really helped them as well. So that may work really well for you too. I will also say that I might have said this at the beginning, but some beings communicate differently than other beings. So oftentimes when I'm connecting with a dragon, I'm going to get impressions of things, but not necessarily have the dragon speak to me. Some dragons do speak to me really clearly, but some of them don't. And so it's impressions of different things that come all together to create a bigger picture and a full story or full message or whatever. Okay. And fairies can be some fairies, there's so many energies. When you say fairy, there's just a multitude of different energies. But if we look at fairies, let's say like Tinkerbell type fairies. Okay, I'm just going to use that as an example. They can be more playful, and so when they come in, their voices to me, even though I'm speaking telepathically, I'm getting their voice as an energy, and it can be very difficult to translate what they're bringing through words because they're speaking in a way that's different. And also remembering that other beings often speak. I mean, obviously English is a very new language, or any other language on earth is a new language, really. Maybe not any other language. I know that there's some languages that are more ancient, but English in particular is a new language. So it's energy, it's reading the energy. So how they communicate, even if they're communicating in a way that you're not necessarily understanding their words, you're able to translate it. Okay. So um well, let's just go back to this. You know, the fairies that come forward in that way may not be communicating necessarily so much through words, and maybe more through an energy that they just bring through that you may be feeling or knowing or even seeing. Okay, let me think of another example of a being that communicates in a different way. Um, a dog streaming in her paws, flapping around. Um, what's another? Okay, so plants. We can communicate with plants and crystals. They're not going to communicate with words. They can still communicate with us, but they don't communicate with words. Unless there is a nature spirit that is attached to them that is coming forward in a way that uses more words or language and energy that translates into words, I guess. But you can still communicate with them. You can definitely still feel an energy. I would say maybe it's not so much seeing unless it's colors or just seeing the movement of energy, which can be also connected to the feeling. It can be through a knowing. So it can come through in different ways. So just keep that in mind. Keep an open mind, no matter whatever you are connecting with, whatever energy you were reading or channeling. Just let it be whatever it is, however it is. Okay. So I hope this video helps you. One thing that I do is I do work with people in my programs, in workshops, even a little bit in like my membership group sometimes, or in my free group, Source Sources Circle on Facebook. We we go into this deeper and get an opportunity to really dive into, abilities and how they work. And when I work with you one-on-one in mentorship capacity, then we really go into your personal abilities and how you work with energy and how you work with energy for healing as well. That's another thing. Like, that's a whole nother video. Are you a healer? And how does the healing abilities work for you? Because we limit ourselves even when it comes to energy healing. And my big thing is that I am being called to step forward and remind people to think outside the box more when it comes to healing and working with energy. So if you're called to any of those things, you can check out my free group. You can check out my membership group where we do 2 moon circles a month, or at least 2 moon circles a month. I channel twice a month in the group. So you get some support, you get some guidance, you get some healing activations, that kind of stuff in that group. And that's a great starting point if you're not able to jump into mentorship. If you're ready for mentorship, um, there is a page up on my website, and my mentorship is called Activate Your Divine Essence. You can check that out. Mentorship is obviously tailored to each individual, so it's going to be different for every person. That gives you an idea of where we start at. If that is something that you are called to, and you are welcome to message me, have a conversation with me if you're feeling a call to deepen things, or you want to learn more about working with me. If you're just not sure yet, there's never any strings attached to have a conversation with me. We can even do a clarity call. And I just ask that if we do a clarity call that, you're serious. And a clarity call is just to see if it's the right fit for you. I find out where you are on your journey, what kind of support you're looking for, that kind of thing. And I can channel to see if it is the right fit for you as well, and see what the guides are saying, your guides, my guides, universal guides, whatever. And see if that's the right fit for you. So I'm just saying all of this because this is a video about channeling. Some of you haven't, even stepped into this energy at all. Some of you may be channeling, maybe you're not trusting in what you're getting. Having a mentor is massively helpful. That was the turning point for me. That's when everything really began to solidify and become more physical in regards to being able to, have a successful business, be able to show up in much bigger ways, help my confidence massively. And that's what I see in my clients. My clients come to me and they may not be totally confident in their abilities. Maybe they're having a hard time believing if they're actually doing these different things. Maybe they're still learning about their healing abilities and not fully understanding what it means to work with energy in this particular way. So whatever it is for you, we go in at that point and we explore it. But not everybody is meant to work with me. So obviously I would tune in to see if that's the right fit, because I don't want to work with people who aren't meant to work with me. Okay. All right, so I rambled enough for this video. Thank you so much for watching, though. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.